Okay. Hi, Peter. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Douglas. Good morning. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
So you got a book. You got a book called The City of Magicians, Threat One or Threat Book One.
Yes.
Um, how many books do you have published?
Three. So Threat is book one, Within is book two, and Quickening is book three.
I was reading through your bio. It sounds very interesting. Where did you grow up?
I'm originally born in Montreal, but my dad was transferred into NATO, and we moved to France, and we lived there for about 3 years, 3.5 years, and my brother and I went to an international French school for NATO kids and diplomatic corps, that sort of stuff, and yeah, it was an amazingly enriching experience for a kid. I was there from the ages of 8 to 12.
Can I ask what years those were?
Yeah, that was 1959 to 1962. So in the middle of the Cold War.
Okay, but post World War II.
Yes, very much so.
I guess if
But
you were that age in the World War, you'd be over 100 years old by now, right?
yes, yes, yeah. We're getting close to it. Yeah.
Well, that must have been interesting. Was that any inspiration for the book? Because there seems to be some kind of parallels with your childhood and growing up. I see different things on your talking points. Was it memories of
Yes.
that is part of this book? Yeah.
I wrote the book. I started writing the book in 1998, and it resonated with an experience when I was 9 years old, a year after we were there. The nice thing about Europe is that you can hop in a car and drive through 5 countries if you want. But in the summer of, must have been 1960, my parents wanted to see the war memorials. They must have lost friends during the Second World War, but the interesting thing is, the war was never explained to us. On the first day of school, we were told there was a war, Germany lost, you don't talk about it. That's it. And that was sort of a natural courtesy, diplomatic corps, NATO kids, because in the French school we had German kids, Dutch kids, English kids, Belgian, and Canadians. and we all had French subjects in the morning. It was strictly French immersion. And then we all separated in the afternoon to our various portals. The German kids were very self-isolating. I've never seen a more quietly depressed group of individuals. But so we went off to the Normandy War Memorial sites, and something in me woke, standing in the midst of tens of thousands of little white crosses stretching as far as the horizon. And my mom is trying to exercise my very poor mathematics skills by saying, Peter, how old was this one when he died? And the numbers were usually 1940, 41, 42, 43. And so I was struggling away. And then she said, how old was this one? And the date was different. It was 1917, and he had been born somewhere in the 1890s. And I said, Mummy, the numbers are wrong. And she said, that's because he died in the First World War. I was flabbergasted into silence. There were two world wars in the same place. It was just stunning. So we piled into the car, and then we drove off to the Vimy Ridge Memorial, which is very important for the Canadian war effort. Thousands of Canadians died there. But as we parked, something in me had had enough. All that commemorated death, all those little white crosses, and I refused to get out of the car. My parents were miffed, and they thought I was sort of having some childish sulk. But for me, it was vindication. I knew I was right. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. All that commemorated death. And I wondered at the novelty of my righteous certainty. And it never left me. When we came back to Canada and North America, I started studying or reading about Mahatma Gandhi's pacifist approach to war, and not just that, but occupation. And they were able to successfully, it took a while, to oust the British from India. And then I started reading Martin Luther King's, who had also studied Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent approach. But the critics, though, raised some interesting points. it was not, how could this approach contend against, say, Nazi Germany, or Stalin's Gulag, or China's Cultural Revolution? And it was, it's this noble instinct, this noble premise would be run over roughshod by these characters who basically couldn't care less about noble causes. So I have a provisional sympathy for pacifism, but it needed to be explored, and thus it was an original premise for the City of the Magicians series. Which is, what does a pacifist, egalitarian, nonviolent city-state do to prepare for barbarian invasion coming in 6 months?
Well, I suppose we could ask Switzerland, because they seem to have managed to stay out of both wars, didn't they?
Yes, they declared neutrality. I think on one level, despite they have 4 languages, and yet there is a unified. It's a difficult country to invade, for one thing, mountainous and somewhat inaccessible, but there was convenience to being neutral. It was so you can have both sides in the country. So you're quite right. It was interesting. And the other one that was successful was Sweden. But they are rare examples. But there's a unified approach when the pacifistic neutrality thing occurs. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be influenced by either side. Sweden certainly was. And messages, from what I can remember reading, is that messages could be passed from one side to the other in these neutral countries.
Well, there's this grand sort of utopian fantasy, I'll call it at this point, of the entire world, borderless, countryless. We're all one human race, united, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. And, you know, sure, that would be lovely.
Yep.
I don't think we're quite there yet. And
You're right.
I doubt it's going to happen in our lifetime. You know, how do we overcome nationalism, language barriers? Language barriers can be overcome with AI pretty much these days.
Right.
But cultural differences are a big problem to obtaining that sort of utopia. You know, there are people who are very proud. They're proud of their country. They're proud of their heritage. They're proud of their religion. Religion is another major obstacle.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, we're opening up huge topics now, and we've got about 6 minutes. So let's go ahead and make your statement, and then let's just cover your book as quickly as you can.
I think the progress, the evolution towards this is very slowly happening. If you take a look at the schoolyards, you see kids of mixed races, and they're gorgeous. My goodness. When the races mix, they produce amazingly beautiful children. And the other thing about mixing is take a look at the restaurants. Vietnamese, different types of Chinese, Indian restaurants, French, German, you name it, Filipino restaurants. And we are mixing, but my goodness, what a process.
Well, it's true. And actually, speaking of that, I read somewhere that Brazil has the largest population of people that have all 3 of the major races.
Yes. Well, if you take a look at Sao Paulo in Brazil, they have the largest Japanese population outside of Japan, which I thought was astonishing and wonderful. And so if you take a look at the major cities, it's when you, again, as I say, when you see the kids, and now they're adults, who are clearly a mixed ancestry. Hawaii is also an excellent example of this mixing. And you see these people and you just say, my goodness, where are they from? I remember meeting one young woman, and there's this curious thing when you try to puzzle out their background. And so I asked this young woman, my goodness, if you don't mind me asking, what is your background? And she took a big sigh and she listed Portuguese, Hawaiian, Samoan, Swedish, French, and she went through 10 different cultures and groups. And it was just like, wow, you're at the cutting edge of where the world has to go.
Well, maybe someday it will. Let's pivot over
Yeah.
to your book, The City of the Magicians. Tell
Yes.
us what is the premise of this book?
As I said, the city council is getting ready for a barbarian invasion, and they've chosen a young man to educate the barbarian. But there are a couple of snags. First of all, he says, "My goodness, me? Are you kidding? They made a mistake." And then there's a second protagonist, a young woman who is searching for her dead lover's missing manuscript, and she gets enmeshed into a secret society that's planning to collaborate with the same barbarian. So both of these individuals are pawns in the strategies of others. And yet, when strategies collide, will anyone be safe? Will anyone be ready? So that's book one. So it's all the missteps and the things that begin to emerge, and are they going to be able to succeed? And can the secret society continue its secret existence when increasingly it's known that they're there? Um, so there's a crescendo to a point at the end of book one. Each book has a bit of a cliffhanger ending. So at the end of book one, without giving too much away, the barbarian arrives and no one's ready.
Does this take place in modern time, or is it?
No, I sort of based it on sort of a late medieval, early Renaissance level of technology and expertise. Um, Yeah, and then book two is the barbarian arrives, and he knows that there are two cliques and two enclaves that are trying to vie for his um, patronage or backing, and he's not stupid. You know, yeah, this one's going after my affections, this one's going after my ambitions. Yeah, but I want this instead. So, and so book three, quickening, are the repercussions that no one has anticipated.
How many books do you anticipate are going to be in this series?
There are at least six, and there may be nine. The ending for book three um, was quite a surprise for me when it finally got written, but it opened up the portal to books four, five, and six, and subsequent other ones. I've started working on all three books four, five, and six. I like my trilogy to sort of read as a single unit, as it were. The books are not standalone, but they're fairly. I think you can sort of read them, but you need backstory in them.
So you said possibly nine. Do you have all of this material already, or is it just? I mean, is it just in your head, or do you have it written down already at this point?
I've got. I don't quite have the full plot arc for the second trilogy, um, and I've got snippets of a plot arc for the third trilogy. But some chapters have been written for book six, book five, and book four, but it hasn't come together quite yet. But it's a fascinating. When you write something like this, it's a fascinating thing. Just where is this going? And then the book will surprise you.
We've got just about a minute and a half, and I wanted to just open up another huge box and see if you can give
Okay,
us a quick
sure.
answer. This is like a quiz a little bit.
Okay.
Um, how do we achieve this utopian society? We talked about mixing, and that's certainly good.
Right.
But how do we deal with human emotion? Because I think human emotion is the culprit in many bad things that happen on this
Yep.
planet.
Yep.
Do we become like
I mean,
Vulcans, like on Star Trek, and just eliminate our emotion?
you can't really do that. What you have to do is be alert to your emotions and don't get excited about too much. Keep it within certain bounds that do not tread on the toes of others, or on your own. Um, so you can be rational, but you can also develop an emotional maturity so that you don't have to go as far as Vulcans, but um, find the commonality, find a workable consensus, and expect that from your colleagues and potentially your oppositions, and just say, let's find some commonality here.
I've always preferred to celebrate our similarities.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of people who say celebrate our differences, but our differences are obvious. The
right.
similarities, I think, would bring us closer together.
Yes. And sometimes the differences can be quite compelling and quite interesting. And if you're willing to be curious and alert to them, oh, I didn't know. Um, I have some Iranian friends, and they don't usually use a knife with their food. They use a spoon to cut. And they say, oh my goodness, that's interesting. So being alert to the differences can expand your own as well.
Well, I've got a friend who is Pakistani and he doesn't use any utensils at all. Uses his
Right.
hand for everything.
And it's their right hand.
Yeah. I said,
Yeah.
how do you do soup? And he just laughed. You know,
You pick up the bowl and
you pick
sip.
up the bowl and sip
And
it.
there's also, and that's why you've got bread to soak, to
Yeah.
dip and
Yeah.
soak. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Peter. Well, listen, this was an interesting conversation. We could have gone on forever. These are big topics we're talking
Yeah.
about here.
They're fun
But I think we,
topics too.
yeah, I think we gave people a good overview of your book series. So, book one is out. Do you have
All
any?
three books are out.
Oh, all three books are out.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're available. You can check the website, petergribble.com. They're also available on Amazon. And if you happen to be in Vancouver, they're also available at the Chapters Indigo book on Robson Street.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put your website up on the screen. And
And I'll also be signing books at the Festival of Books the last week in April at the Black Chateau booth. I think it's number 153.
all right. Thank you again. It was nice meeting you. Best of luck with the
Nice to
books.
meet you too. And happy reading.